Welcome to the BGPerform podcast, influencing the highest standard of coaching, one episode at a time.
This is the show for coaches, athletes, and high performers who demand more from their training, their clients, and themselves.
Whether you're coaching elite competitors or everyday people, you'll get raw insights that raise the bar so you can influence the highest standard of coaching in your world. DM myself at BGPerform_ and at Coach Jerry Hayes to work together or learn from the best. This show is part of the Coach RX Podcast Network, a collection of shows designed to elevate the coaching conversation. Find the link in the description below. Now sit back and enjoy our new episode.
There it is.
Welcome back to the BGPerform Podcast with my co-host, Coach Jerry Hayes.
What's
Jerry,
up?
welcome back. It's been a couple weeks since we actually, probably by the time we post this, it'll have been about a month since we have posted an episode. And I'm excited because we took a little bit of time off so we could come back and make sure that we were putting ourselves in the best position to succeed with this podcast. And I think one of the biggest things that I was thinking about last time we did this was the tagline of BGPerform, the mission statement or whatever you want to call it, right? Like influencing the highest standard of coaching. And I think one of the things that I get lost in is one of my good qualities of being an entrepreneur, one of my bad qualities of being an entrepreneur is that I'm someone who just likes to do, and I just like to go, and I'll just get it done. And I think had a little epiphany the last couple of weeks, got a lot of things that have been happening. I'm about to turn 30 this week. And in that time, I've been just kind of diving into the deeper thoughts of what that means. And part of it was, again, if I'm going to influence the highest standard of coaching, I need to have that highest standard in everything that I do. And this is one of the most important. So had some updates, some things. I cringed at some of the things that I had to buy to make this
Cringe is
podcast
an
better.
understatement, dude.
One of them being this mic. Jerry had to talk me off a ledge before buying the mic.
Brandon sent me hate mail before purchasing it.
I really did. I was so angry.
He was like, "You wait 5 to 7 business days. You're gonna read something."
Yeah, it was tough when I was gonna go buy this mic. It was just the price tag on it, but it's worth it because Jerry is right. The sound quality is different, and I want this to be a nice listening experience for everybody who does take the time to listen to this podcast. So I want to kind of give you just a brief overview. Actually, Jerry, anything to add to that?
Not really. No, just been grinding, been killing the program. I've been in. If you haven't tried out Transcend, I've been doing our program Transcend 3.0 now, right? 3.0, and it's been feeling really good. I've been seeing a lot of progress, feeling strong. So I figured, like, why not just do the program that we give to people so we get the same results, you know? So it's been going really well. I'm loving it.
Beautiful. Yeah. We're gonna have to do it before and after so we can.
I should have taken it before. Dude, same page, first of all, without saying a word. Same speed and everything.
It really was the same speed.
That was perfect. The viewers are going to love that one. The listeners, you'll just have to imagine it.
That'll be the reel for Instagram on the first one back.
Yeah.
So coming back into the podcast, one of the biggest things that I wanted to do was implement a little bit more of a season format. And I think with the season format, I wanted this to be something that we can start to organize a little bit better for, not only ourselves, but for you guys. So you have a better idea of what you're getting into and kind of having an idea of where the podcast or what we're going to be talking about for at least a month to 2 month span. And we sat down, we went over a couple ideas. We talked about a couple different ideas and frameworks. And this first season back, I'm going to be calling it season 1, but technically it's like season 4 of the podcast. But I really want to I want this to be a fresh start. So this is going to be season 1 of the new BGPerform podcast. So the topic we're going to be covering in this first season is going to be the art of coaching. So we're going to be talking about things such as the BGPerform System, which is going to be today's episode. We're going to talk about what makes a great coach, principles versus methods, mistakes new coaches make, autonomy, how to build programs that actually build results, and coaching for results versus coaching for Instagram likes. Those are going to be some of the topics that we discuss, and we're going to dive into them, each of these topics, just like we've been doing, but a lot more detail. I think one of the things that I also wanted to do here was plan a little bit more and have these episodes be, a lot more detail for us. So so we can give you guys the most amount of value in the shortest time possible, right? None of our podcasts are really more than an hour, but I want that hour to be very informative, and I want you guys to take away so much that you're like, I need to go back and I want more, right?
Yeah, maybe break out a notepad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that was part of the thing. And then obviously a new camera setup. I was playing around with a couple camera setups, and this is kind of what I settled on for the first episode. I got the new mic. We got some lighting. We're playing around with some things, so we're trying to make the
Getting that
quality better.
studio going, man.
And
It's
until
good.
me and Jerry figure this out where we can be together, this is the vibe right now. So getting into episode 1 of season 1 of the new BGPerform podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the BGPerform system. Now, this is something that has been on my mind, and I haven't really been able to put into words for, a decent amount of time. And there's a company I started following a couple months back called Cadence, and Cadence is a hydration company, or like a run. I guess you could call them like a run sport company. Essentially, they built their brand around running, and they have like a salt hydration drink. They also have electrolyte packets. They have carbohydrates for running. They have or not even an energy bar. I guess it's like a pre-running bar, like a carb bar, based like almost like a Rice Krispie treat. And one of the things I love that they did really well is that they built almost a system that a client can understand the entire business, right? So this got me thinking, and as I've been following them, I was like, I want to do something like this for you guys, because I think it's really important to understand, where you're at in your journey, but also, I want you guys to understand that what we do is a system, right? And I think me and Jerry have both been talking about this topic because me and him have systems that we use. But what I really like about this is it's on paper, kind of encompassing everything that we do to kind of show you like what are the products in each section that best suit you and your goals. And I think sometimes a lot of people look at us, right, and especially me in the last couple of years, as I've trained some like high level athletes, and I think they're kind of like, does he train normal people, or like, can he train normal people? And I think this is something I've had to kind of address myself, and I think that this is part of me addressing this, right? Because although I do train high elite level athletes, I still have programs, I still have options for people who just want to stay fit and just want to build and sustain, right? And Jerry is someone as well who's worked with high level athletes, but also now works with a majority of general population clients, right? But he also works in a boxing gym, so he works with people who want to perform better inside the ring and just in general. And I think one of the things also that this system is going to do is allow you to, like I said, understand like, okay, if I do want to just build or sustain, right? What are the programs that I'm actually looking at that I think are going to fit me in my lifestyle, and how are they going to fit me in my lifestyle, right? Anything to add to that?
No, you're on a roll.
Cool. Yeah. So I want to, like I said, I want to start that like the BGPerform system, right? It's not like, this isn't just how we train, right? Like it's literally from the ground up how we design our coaching, how we create products, how we create programs, and how we get you from, I'd say like, point A to point B, but also like doing it with purpose, right? And I think with the BGPerform system, there's 4 main pillars that I want to talk about today that we're going to me and Jerry are both going to dive into a little bit more. So we have health, strength, discipline, and longevity, right? And these aren't like, this isn't the system, but these are what the system is based off of. And I think for me, we'll start at health. Health to me is number 1, because I think even in performance, this is an aspect that a lot of people, I want to say, like, don't respect enough. Because I talked about this in my seminar recently that I did at Henzo Gracie here in Latham. And a lot of athletes, like, we look at some of these athletes and we see six packs, or we see them shredded, and they're 4, 5, 6, 7% body fat, right? And they have so much that speaks of like a Greek god statue. Like, we've all seen those statues and we're like, damn, I want to look like a Greek god. And when we look at it, we're like, that must be healthy, right? And I think a lot of the times we automatically assume aesthetics is health, when I can speak to it. I've seen people who look the best they've ever looked and physically are just in terrible shape, right?
Just
One specifically
falling
that I
apart,
won't
yeah.
name, right? Like, he was in the best shape of his life before a fight, but the dude couldn't touch his toes, if you asked him to bend over, and which is crazy because he could head kick somehow. I don't know. I don't understand. But
Yeah.
so it's these types of things when we start to look at health. Like health is a factor that not only goes into regular training programs but also performance programs, right? Health is the foundation of everything that we do, and it's so important that we talk about it from a because it's literally in every single program, right? Whether you're at phase 1, which we'll get to in a second, or phase 3, whatever aspect of the system you're in, health is going to be an aspect of each program that we build.
Yeah, I think the key thing too, and since it is like the big aspect in every single program, no matter where you are and what your goals are, that should be like part of your goal. Is to just be a healthier, well-rounded person in fitness and in life, making sure that you're building into the lifestyle type stuff, not just I'm doing this in the gym to look good, whatever. That's great. But carrying these habits outside of the gym is what really sets the bar for you in the gym. Because if you're not doing all the right things, we've talked about that a million times on the podcast, to our clients individually. But if you are not doing what you need to do outside the gym, it doesn't completely negate what you do in the gym, but it almost makes it so you might as well be doing nothing at some point.
Yeah, and I think it's more of like, it's like, for me, like I said, as we start to get closer to the highest levels of performance, we're actually moving closer to sickness, right? Like you're going to be closer to sickness than you are to true health. And that's something that a lot of people just don't realize. And we say that because you're not sleeping as much. You're cutting calories. You're training at, more often than not, like a higher level than needed, right? Like optimum, higher than the optimal level of training that is needed inside of your, everyday fitness journey. And that is not health, right? And the next one for me is strength. Now, I think when I say strength, I don't want us to just think about like physical, like how much weight can I press strength,
for sure,
but like a mental component as well, like Jerry just said. I think that like strength to me could almost be resilience as well, but I chose strength because it's a more relatable word. And I think that strength inside of our program is understanding that we want to build capacity. We want to build, obviously, the ability to get stronger, right? But also do more, right? And I think that when we talk about strength inside of a BGPerform program, it's consistent progression. It's adding weight each week. It's knowing you're getting put in a spot where you're building aspects of a program that you may have never seen before, right? Whether it be decision making, whether it be just straight up, autonomy, whether it be understanding language, understanding tempo and sets and reps and all of that stuff. And all of this, there's a piece of it that comes in that, the overarching goal, literally and metaphorically, is strength. And I think that's one of the most important things that we can add into the system that kind of adds like an umbrella effect to it.
Yeah, that's, I think, the mental component that obviously sets the bar for everything else you do physically too, in and out of the gym. Excuse me, having trouble clearing my throat today. Whether you're trying to get to the gym, what?
I was like,
I missed it. Not bad. Whether you're trying to get to the gym and like that strength, and this kind of plays into the next part too, so Brandon can kind of jump onto that subject as well. Getting yourself to the gym, making sure you're constantly doing what you need to do. Dang it. And then it's driving me nuts. And then when you're in the gym, being able to push yourself to oh, I can't even fucking. All right, reset. Hold on. Oh, reset. All right. So what I was saying with strength is, we're never gonna get this podcast done. What I was saying about strength was, whether you're getting yourself to go to the gym or you're in the gym and you're trying to get yourself to actually have the output that's necessary to receive results, to achieve results. Brandon really messed me up.
I'll take over.
Just be strong. Brandon, go into discipline.
Just be strong.
Be strong. I'm gonna take a sip of water.
We're leaving this in, by the way. We're leaving this in.
Yeah.
So
what is that part from? He was like, "You fucker."
I think that was from Remember the episode when they're in the office and he's like, my like Rick is
Oh,
my mortal enemy. He goes,
why do you have to
I hate
ruin
you,
it?
Rick.
Yeah. Fucking
And he
Rick.
starts
All right,
throwing the
anyway.
water. And he goes,
I'll do what I want. I'll stop when I want to.
if you haven't watched, I think you should leave. Definitely check out. I think you should leave. I have to watch that new movie too, Friendship. But anyways,
Same.
so next is discipline, right? And I think discipline is probably one of the single most important aspects of any program, because I think discipline allows us to build the necessary skills. And I think discipline covers a couple things, right? It covers consistency, it covers decision making, it covers what else could we throw in there? Probably
Doubt.
I think
It's like
what?
self-doubt. Like
Yeah,
there's a whole
self-doubt. Like
mental
it's just
game.
understanding like discipline is the goal, and discipline is doing the things that you don't necessarily want to do consistently, right?
Yeah.
And it's doing the things that need to be done on a daily basis, even if you don't feel like doing it. And finding ways, even if it's not your 100%, even if it's not the best you've ever felt doing something, you're getting it done in the best way that you possibly can at that moment in time, right? And discipline is a word that, you know, is so important to me. And I think that part of me, like, this is what's gotten me to the point that I guess, gotten to so far. And obviously, I want to get a lot further. But I think of these successes that I've had so far in my coaching career, discipline was the biggest one. Even on the days that I feel like garbage, right? I'm getting something done. It doesn't matter. And then, you know, if I'm on my worst days, I'm getting a couple things done. If I'm on my best days, I'm getting even more done, right? And I've had a lot more best days, quote unquote, as I've pushed through those hard days, because it becomes easier. And the same thing in programming. When you push through on those days and you follow a program that actually allows you to mess up in the beginning and not fall off, right? And that's one of the things that we build inside of our program is space early on so you can mess up and still make progress, right? And I think that's one of the things with discipline is just even on those days in the beginning where there's a lot of new information, you're tired, you had a bad day at work, it's getting in there, doing the things that you need to do, and being able to follow the program through its completion and understand you're going to get better no matter what, as long as you just stick with it.
Yeah, there's a lot that falls under discipline when it comes to actually getting to the gym. And Brandon and I had this discussion yesterday. I was exhausted. I didn't sleep well that night, and I just had to go to the gym anyway. And on the way there, I kind of have the same, I guess, timeline. Every day I get home from work, my commute is close to an hour some days, which is the worst. Some days, like yesterday, I was kind of nodding off the wheel. I'm on my way home. Don't worry, I didn't fall asleep. Don't tell the cops. But when I get home, I have to eat a snack quick, change, and then I have to leave the house immediately to go to the gym. And yesterday was one of those days where I was on the way there, and I was like, dude, I don't want to go. I really don't want to go. I'm too tired. And then when I got there, I'm starting to warm up, and I'm like, why am I nauseous? What is happening? And then by the time I get into my first like warm-up sets, I'm like, okay, now I'm feeling good. When I left, I felt like a different person. So there's this feeling that people will never get to understand if they don't have the discipline to push themselves, is that even on your worst days, you can still turn it into a best day after a good lift. And it's,
Well, I think like me and you have had this discussion, because I think Jerry oftentimes errs on the side of caution, and I go way over what
reckless.
I need to. Jerry's smart. He's smarter with his training. And I'm someone who just fucking continues to go way over the.
It's because I've always gone way overboard, and I always end up getting hurt or sick, and I'm like, I got to be more careful.
Well, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean like you know when you need to pull back.
Only
and I'm someone who's like, I'll pull back eventually, and then I'll pull
back after I choke someone out.
Yeah, to continue to go. And I think we were talking about this the other day. Jerry's someone more of like who functions more in like sprints. I think we were kind of talking about that the other day.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who's just more like marathon based. Like Jerry gets a lot done in a short time and then kind of regroups and then gets a lot done in a short time. Where I'm someone who's just like every day I prefer to like chip away slowly at something, right? So it's like when I train, like I don't train at 100% every single day. And I think that's part of the reason I'm able to is like, I do know what my limits are, but I'm going to consistently show up every single day. Like I think I train 7 days a week now. Pretty sure. Yeah. Like on the days I don't lift, I'm usually running, and the other days I'm usually doing both. But Yeah. So, and it's again, that's not to brag. It's just to say that like I know my limits and I'm able to do that after such a long time, right? I wasn't doing that at the beginning. I wasn't doing that, at many points in my life. But as of the last few years, I've been able to kind of find a groove where I can lift and get all the things I need while still feeling good
Mm-hmm.
and also being able to consistently train 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we're a little bit different on that end, and neither is wrong, right? It's just about understanding your limits and knowing when it's good and when it's like, okay, cool, I gotta kind of pull back on this a little bit.
Yeah.
So the last piece is longevity, right? And that's kind of just getting into this, this conversation we had right here is like, we want to do this for a really long time, right? And I think what's really important and what I see is so many people in the short term look for like short term results, right? And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to lose X amount of pounds in 60 days. I want to lose X amount of pounds in 30 days, 90 days, whatever it is. Realistically, if we're talking months, we're thinking too small inside of fitness, right? Even myself, when I first lost weight, I was someone who was like just jumping at the gun, right? I was like, I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to do it. I don't care what I have to do. It's going to happen, right? And within, 6 months, I had lost 70 pounds, which is, not really unheard of, but like that's a lot of weight to lose in 6 months,
Very
realistically,
short
right?
period of time. Yeah.
And after I did it, I really sat back and I was like, okay, like that probably wasn't healthy, right? I probably didn't do that in the best way I could. Would I do that again? Probably not. And I think that when I look back at it now, and I've said this on other episodes, like when I go back and think about how I did it, sometimes I'm like, how did I do that? Like why or how did I do that, right? And I think that now I'm at a spot where I know I want to train for the rest of my life. Like I know what makes me feel good. I know what makes me feel confident. I know when I'm feeling my best inside the gym. And it's when I'm able to go in there, complete my workout, leave standing, and go home and enjoy the rest of the day. Right. And I think that's something where even when I'm in jujitsu, even when I'm doing anything else, it's like health is number one, consistency is number two. And then being able to just train and be in the gym is like, that's what culminates by working on those two. Right. And longevity needs to be built into programming, right? It needs to be built into the amount of maxes that we're doing, right? It needs to be built into the amount of reps and sets that we're doing over the course of an extended period of time. The movement selection we're doing, right? When you look at high level athletes, these guys are high level athletes for, the average NFL career is like 4 seasons, I think,
Mm.
right? And think about how many people have played like very long careers. Like there's people who have played 15, 16-year careers and the average is 4, right? So how many
Brady
people on the back end
Favre.
of that didn't even get to play a full season or only played 1 or 2 seasons, right? And that's just the NFL. We're not
Mm-hmm.
even talking about the hardest sport, the NBA, to get into, because the NBA, like percentage wise, is I think the hardest sport to get into per the amount of players like in the league
Mm-hmm.
and opportunities, because there's not what's the word I'm looking for?
There's
Like there's not
limited.
that many
It's
openings.
limited capacity.
Yeah. Like there's
Yeah.
only 12 people on a team. There's 30 teams or 32 teams, I think, in the NBA. So
Mm-hmm.
there's only so many roster spots available for the team, whereas the NFL is like a 60-man roster, I believe, and
Mm-hmm.
there's 30 teams, right? So when we talk about this, like longevity is the goal. We, whether we're, just starting out, getting into like intermediate programming or really starting to see what we can do or stepping into those higher levels of fitness, we want to be able to do it for a long time, right? We might not be able to, perform at the highest level for extended periods of time, but we can perform for a really long time, be really good, and maintain health throughout that entire thing, right? And I was actually having this conversation with myself today because I was thinking of a couple things that have happened in the past couple months as I've transitioned out of a couple things. And I think with a lot of athletes, I think a lot of them, they overlook strength conditioning for a couple of reasons. One, they overlook it because it if you don't do it right, it can take away, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
be really smart. And two, in fighting specifically, when you don't have an essence or when you don't have like an S&C program and you're used to one, you can kind of get like a super compensation effect from it, where you're recovering a little bit more, your muscles are recovering, and you're still getting that strength stimulus from a lot of the other things that you're doing, whether it be jujitsu, grappling, all that other stuff. And you'll feel like you often feel like you're better when you didn't do it right after or before a fight. But the strength conditioning, truly, if you're doing it in the right way, isn't about like that fight or that fight after, right? It's the 3, 4, and 5 fight after a program, right? If you haven't followed a program for 3, 4, 5, 6 fights, that 3 to 6 fight range is when you're going to be like, damn, I'm feeling it, right? Like the strength conditioning program is built for longevity and allowing you to do your sport consistently. And I think that a lot of coaches overlook this and strictly go for performance. And they're like, how, we got to get them faster. We got to get them explosive. We got to get them stronger. And that's, again, like you have to do that as well.
They make it too numbers based.
Yeah. And we want to also understand like these athletes they want long careers, right? And we want them to be healthy and perform at the highest level for as long as they humanly possibly can. And performance needs to also be coupled with health and longevity, right? And I think, if we kind of look over these 4, right, we got health, strength, discipline, and longevity. Those are the aspects that are inside of every single BGPerform program, right? When we sit down and we're like, all right, we want to build this program, we want it to, at its foundation, support health or promote health, right? We want it to provide strength mentally and physically. We want to create discipline inside the program. So options to create your own decisions, right? Make your own decisions, push the reps, hold back a little bit, understand the tempos, things like that. And then obviously building in longevity so you can do this for the rest of your life. Anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say that last point is exactly what you said. Like you're doing this for your life. So this is like, if you want the best health, you want to have strength, or if you want longevity rather, you want to have your health in check, because obviously you're not going to make it very far if you're not taking care of your, whether it's physical health, mental health, your joints, your muscles, just the things you need for your career if you're an athlete, or even the strength. If you're not, strength and discipline kind of going hand in hand. If you're not doing everything you need to do and having the willpower to say no to certain things and say yes to other things, like going to bed on time, waking up early, making it to every session, not missing your check-ins with your coach, and then also just being able to allow yourself to have downtime, because I know that and Brandon and I have talked about this before, downtime is huge for me. If I don't have my downtime, especially at the end of the night, I just end up crashing by the end of the week. So whether it's just stretching, mobility, quiet time,
yeah, I think also not to cut you off, it doesn't have to be physical either. I think that's another thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's downtime. I gotta stretch so I can recover. I gotta foam roll. Like most of the time, people aren't ever actually reaching a point of recovery with their central nervous system. So it's like, reach that first, meditate, breathe.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, if you journal, literally getting things out of your head, getting rid of the clutter. For me, my newest thing has been going for a ride on my bike. That's been one of the best ways to clear my mind. It's my alone time. I get my music, but I also think. And that downtime makes the biggest difference when it comes to being stress-free. And being stress-free will promote healthier habits going into every other aspect of your training.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's good. Yeah. So obviously those were what we feel, I guess, make up the programs, right? But what I want to get into next is the actual system in which BGPerform is built on, right? So we have build, sustain, and influence. And this is, like I said, this is what BGPerform is and where each program kind of lives. And from here on out, where each product or I guess service, whatever you want to call it, that me and Jerry create is going to fall into one of these 3 categories, right? So basically what I want to do today is kind of talk to you about what each of them are. And so you know where to look from now on. And so you know what the timeline is, right? So what is kind of the life arc of a program? Because many people, in this system, a lot of people aren't going to leave the build phase, right? You might just be there for the rest of your life, and that's okay, right? It's just to understand that, what are the things we're actually looking for inside of the build phase. So maybe we can graduate to sustain. And then if we are someone who has that drive and that desire to get to the influence phase, you're able to do that consistently and effectively so you can get the most out of it, right? So one of the things that when I sat down and actually talked about this and was putting this together, it clicked right away with these 3 words, right? And I think influence is a word that we use consistently, and it's literally just what we built BGPerform on, right? Sustain is just a that's literally what it is. You just continue to do it. Like it's just sustaining movement, sustaining habits, sustaining consistency, and then building is just the aspect of getting better and learning, right? So phase one inside of the BGPerform system is build, right? And this is what I like to call our foundation phase, right? So this is where fitness really becomes our lifestyle, and this is where we learn, right? This is where we take kind of the beginning pieces, we learn the language, we build it into our life so that we can get on track and understand how to promote fitness into our life. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that this is, if you're just starting off, obviously this is where you'd be, but also this is where you can almost, I don't want to say fall back to, because it's not like it's a regression, but this is where you can always come back to if you're looking to change your goals and you're trying to reevaluate your fitness plan. Because I'm sure everyone listening to this, and myself and Brandon have even done it, we're in one path and we're like, you know what, I want to try out this little fitness venture. I want to go over here. Build is where you're going to be to kind of restart those goals and replan your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I literally just did that with running. Like when we did this half marathon recently, like I had to, and I've been running consistently for I think like 7 months before that. And I remember when I was in England last year, I started running, and I started at like 2 miles. I remember did 2 miles. I was like, that fucking sucked. At like 9 or 10 minutes, I think I did like 9 to 10 minutes, somewhere between there for 2 miles, and I was dead. And then obviously like 7 months later, 8 months later, I ran the half marathon, and did it at 8:16 mile, which is nuts to think about, right?
Yeah.
But so the build, and then like I think one of the things about build is it's not a performance, it's not about the performance metrics, right? For me it's about gaining confidence so that you can do this consistently, right? And I think one of the things you're going to see is when we put this together, the build, sustain, and perform or influence phases all are in each program, right? But they're layered on top of each other, right? So when you get to that highest level, it's going to include all three. But this is why it's so important. And when we go back to what we were just talking about before with the pillars, right? The health, discipline, longevity, and strength, those are all encompassed in all our programs. But as those people need a little bit more, there's a second layer to it, right? And then there's a third layer to it, and that's where high performance is gained. So build is for those people who might just be starting in the gym, who want to learn how to implement fitness into their life, want to learn the language, understand it, not feel like they're lost when they go into a gym and look at the equipment and go, all right, I don't know what any of this is, right? Or I know what the equipment is, but like, how do I know how many to do? How do I know what's enough, what's not enough? And the build phase in a BGPerform program is one to help you really define what that is for you, right? Define what it is you're trying to achieve. And like I said, this is a system that like you don't ever have to leave. And that's the really cool thing about this is like, this is just like a possibility of what's to come, as opposed to like, you have to follow this progression from start to finish. Like you might just be in the build phase. That's all. And like I said, a lot of my clients that I've trained stay in the build phase and they get really good results and they get really strong and they're really healthy. Right. And I think Jerry too, like you can add to this as well, is like, how many clients have we had that, one, I guess in our mind, right, before we actually put this together, but like stayed in the build phase, like, and still were progressing and finding results and fun in the gym? Because I think a lot of people, they might think of like the build phase as the boring stuff. It's like, all right, well, how, because I think a lot of people, and I'll end after this, is like when you think of build phase, you think of slow, methodical, things that are just like really long and tedious and that type of thing. That's what I would think, right? So I think that the build phase is really important to understand, like, yes, we are doing those things, but it's going to progress inside of that phase itself.
Yeah, and I've had countless number of clients who are in the build phase and they just want to be in the build phase. Like some people will dip their toe in sustain for a little bit, and we'll get into that afterwards. But I've had clients who have shown up day one for a consultation and they're like, hey, like this is whatever, blah, blah, blah. I say, okay, so why do you want to start? Like, why'd you come in today? Why'd you want to meet with me? And they say, I'm sick of feeling the way I feel. And I'm like, okay, well, do you have something in mind of where you want to be, somewhere you've been before that you want to get back to? And they're just like, I've always been really unhealthy. I need to change it. And I was like, all right, let's get to it. And as we go through, they're like, yeah, I feel great. Let's keep doing it. They don't have a specific goal they want to hit. They just want to feel good. And they stay in the build phase because they're constantly learning in the build phase. We may be progressing them, but it's all continuing to progress, continuing to get stronger in certain movements, and then also allowing them to have different, or I guess access to different movement planes without pain, stuff like that. But it's all within build, and they're constantly growing and achieving more toward the goals that they were so, what's the word I'm looking for? Not ambiguous. So unsure about.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then next, obviously sustain. And what I want you guys to kind of see here is what I just talked about. Like these build on top of each other. The build phase is going to encompass, or is going to be involved in every single program that we build. There's going to be a beginning phase where we build either accumulation in regards to the I guess the resilience to get to that higher end programming, or it's building the capacity to understand, the capacity to perform, whatever it might be. But we're building kind of this foundation, right? And once you have that base and you built that foundation, now you have the opportunity where you can grow and actually, sustain what you just built, right? Mm-hmm. And when we look at sustain, to me, this is someone who has a solid fitness background and just wants to get better, right? Maybe they have an event that they're training for. Maybe they have a rec league that they're playing in. Maybe they just want to look a little bit better and hit some PRs and have a little bit more of like performance-based metrics. So we're looking at someone who's like, maybe they want to do a powerlifting meet. Maybe they want to join, a men's baseball, soccer, or basketball league. Maybe they just want to actually take this a little bit serious and see where this can bring them, whether it's about losing weight, whatever it might be. Then the build phase also encompasses that as well. But that sustain phase is going to just be an action or extra added component on top of it that just makes it a little bit more involved and requires a little bit more of accountability, a little bit more discipline, a little bit more of the, I guess the discipline is the right word, a little bit more of that on a daily basis, whether it be for the food choices you make, making sure you hit those sets and reps hard at the right intensities, making sure you're taking those rest days, making sure you're recovering in between those sets correctly and not doing too much too soon, right? So it's like we go into that build phase, and then once we complete that build phase, now we're on to that next phase, which is sustain, which takes those skills inside of build and just basically makes them just a little bit harder to ask a little bit more of you so we can get those higher performance and I guess physical results that we're looking for.
So how does that tie into influence?
So influence, right? Influence is for those who, and again, and why I chose this word is because I look at this as someone who wants to influence the people around them, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that if you want to take on that burden of being someone who inspires someone else, the program has to reflect that in some capacity, right? If you want to be someone who, people look at and be like, hey, I wish I had your insert here, right? Discipline, capacity, conditioning, whatever it might be. The influence program is for someone who wants to show up and show out, really. Like this is the top tier for me. This would be build is that first phase, sustain is that second phase, and influence is that last level that really takes us to the highest levels of performance, right? This for me is like you're not just chasing results, you're chasing like excellence inside of what you do, whether it be, like I said, the sport you're performing in, that extra, getting a little bit extra leaner, having the understanding and knowledge to maybe start coaching other people or just understanding it to a level that you can read any type of program and be like, yeah, I can understand what I need to do here, right? And for me is influence and why I built this as like a part of the business is because this is for those who want to lead by example, right? So this is the people who, when you look at the gym, they're consistent. They're there every single day, right? Maybe they're not lifting the most amount of weight, but they're there every single day at the same time doing exactly what needs to be done, and they look the part, right? Mm-hmm. And when I say look the part, I mean they're there, you see them doing it, they're putting in the work, that type of thing, right? And I think that this is where advanced programming methods need to kind of be discussed. It's running specific methods, right? Maybe running specific splits, running specific movements at specific times, understanding when we have to really start to peak and then when we kind of need to bring it back down and make sure that we're, not doing too much too soon. If there's specific events, right? Talking about the half marathon, this is something where when we have an event that we're actually getting ready for, we want to make sure that we're not doing too much before that. So the day of the race, we feel fresh and ready to go, right? And I think that like high performance lifestyle habits are different than sustain habits and different than build habits, right? Build is like we're getting our feet wet. Sustain is like maybe we go knee deep, and then influence is like I'm diving in head first into the ocean and doing everything that I need to do. And I think that like this is where we take those habits from the build phase, and like I said, we really are pushing them and exercising them to the highest capacity that we're capable of. You're like, again, you're not just here when you do an influence type program, you're not just here to like influence yourself, obviously physically, but like you're here to influence those around you who see you working hard and adding, those aspects to it on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with influence is it really, because the other ones it's lifestyle with build, it's lifestyle with sustain, but you're going all in. Like Brandon said, you're diving head first when you're going into the influence phase, and that's something where it's not like it becomes your whole personality, but you have a true passion for your fitness goals, what you've done in fitness, where it's taken you, where you plan to continue to go. It's something that you will constantly be making yourself better in some capacity. It's something like Brandon said, whether you might not be lifting every day at the gym, but you're there. You're constantly working and chipping away toward your goals, and that is what truly makes influence special.
Yeah. And I think like one of the last things I kind of want to do before we end this episode, because this has been good, is I just want to briefly go over like of the products and services we have, I want to kind of show you like where they fit in and how this makes sense, right? So when we talk about the build phase, like we're looking at most of our general programs here. So whether it be Transcend, whether it be Dinner Party, whether it be the weight loss, the fight camp, like most of these, the key outcomes that we're looking to develop here are consistency and routines, building a baseline of strength and capacity, restoring movement and function, and then really just like establishing a foundation inside of our training protocols, right? Like we want to be able to look at what we're doing and understand it more on a daily basis, and that's what the build phase is for. And with the general programs, like obviously we can talk a little bit more about the where do I want, like we could do higher level coaching, but in the beginning it's really important that one, we don't put so much pressure on ourselves to dive into something like that, but also that we understand the general programs are really a good way to build autonomy and understand how to get fitness in our life in the right capacity, right? If you're really, struggling and you need someone there for accountability, that's great. And I think that's something you can look for as well in the build phase. But I think for the most part, like it's understanding and finding those capacities that allow you to kind of build on these skills to make better over time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I think from there, when we talk about sustain, this is where we look at, personal training 1 to 2 times a week, or the VIP coaching. We can start to kind of talk about this a little bit more, where we're diving into some of these build phase skills and improving them, or I guess individualizing them a little bit more specifically for you as a client, right? And our aspect here, I guess, or our main outcomes are to stay strong, healthy, and mobile year round, right? To integrate training and lifestyle and career and friends and all of that, while also giving you an opportunity to get better and improve inside of these programs, right? So if we look at build, it's more about most build programs are going to kind of look the same at the beginning, right? You're going to kind of get this same, I wouldn't say the same movements per se, but like the same layout. There's going to be higher volume, higher tempos. The rest might be a little bit longer. The language might be a little bit softer. The descriptions might be a little bit more in depth. But once we get to that sustain phase, it's like, all right, we know what we're doing. Let's get to it, right? Like we know what the language is. We know what the movements are. So now we had this weight that we built up to in the build phase. Now we're going to do this for multiple sets. Now we're going to do this at a new movement. Now we're going to progress this and we're going to add a different component to it. We're going to take away something. We're going to add a harder component to it, right? Maybe instead of an assisted single leg RDL in the first build phase, the sustain phase is now we're taking away that assistance and now we're just working on a body weight or weighted RDL, right? Little things like this that progress us inside of the program. And then for influence, now for me with the influence program, if you're actually committing to something like this, like you need to be committing to it, right? And to commit to the influence level of programming, it's 2 to 3 weeks minimum inside of personal training, right? They're really, to me, like if you're not in the gym 2 to 3 times a week for personal training, then like you're doing yourself a disservice if you want to influence, right? Now, on top of that, the other option would obviously be like VIP coaching, because that's going to be every single aspect of your life built for you, right? You're going to have the lifestyle audit, you're going to have the programming week by week, the movement selection, you're going to have all of these aspects that are built around you and your lifestyle and your priorities to make sure whatever you need to succeed in life, you're going to get so you can do that to the highest capacity, right? And I think that when we talk about this, like the influence level is literally putting ourselves above everything else, taking those skills from build, improving them in sustain, and then really maximizing them inside the influence aspect of the system, right? Anything to add?
That's perfect.
Cool. And I think like I said, the biggest thing, like there's no pressure to level up. There's no pressure to be like, oh, I'm in the build phase, I got to get to sustain, right? Or I'm in sustain and I don't really want to influence, but I feel like that's what I need to do, right? There's no pressure, right? And I think that if you can understand where you're at, and that's the most important thing of building this system, is truly understanding where you're at inside your journey and knowing what makes sense and what the goals are of each, right? Outside of actually knowing like what program should I be doing is understanding like, okay, what is the key outcome of build that I need to succeed, right? If it's to understand better, it's to learn, it's to physically build capacity, it's mentally to build capacity, consistency, accountability, then I need to focus on those things and understand them before I can even think about what's next, right? And I think what happens and where a lot of people fail inside of fitness is they use this build phase as literally just like a physical build phase where they just build. They just build weight and that's it. They don't work on any of the other aspects of fitness. They don't work on any other aspects of learning, and they struggle, right? And then when their coach isn't there or they're struggling with, progression down the line, if they never had one, they're like, this doesn't make sense. I don't know what I'm doing. This program's not working. I'm going to go find someone who's promising me results in 90 days. And yes, you might find results in 90 days and you might find some good results in 90 days, but I guarantee you, I don't know the percentage. I'm going to guess 85% of those people lose those results, right? I think when that show, what was it called? The Biggest Loser, right?
Yeah, The Biggest Loser. Yeah.
It was like, I don't know what it was, but it's like the same thing as like when you win the lotto. It's like people win the lotto and then they go bankrupt and they wonder why. And it's like, well, you just won $1 million, but you weren't ready to win $1 million, right? So it's like in that same case, when someone loses a bunch of weight, they're not ready to lose a bunch of weight. And then once all the accountability, the fun, the flash, the cameras is gone, they go right back to it, right? And that's where it's really important that we understand this stuff and build so we can really keep this for the rest of our life. And I think that, like, again, like these pillars aren't ladders, right? It's just nothing like we just want you to know where you're at, what you're doing, and what the takeaways are from each phase so you can get better, so you can move in the right direction. And, if you feel like it and we feel like it as coaches or whoever you're programming with too, like, great. Right. And I hope this matters for more than just our program. Like, I don't want this to just be like, this is just the BGPerform program. Like, you can take this into anything. Right. And I think that, like, I'm just telling you, like, if you did want to work with us, this is what would work. But like any program you go to, if you're going and the beginning phase has you, jumping into things that you've never even heard of, right? Or jumping into skills and tasks without actually understanding what they are, you're probably going to struggle. And you need to be real with yourself or with your coach and be like, hey, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And I think I'm in more of like a build phase and I want to learn some of this stuff a little bit more in depth, right? And this is what me and Jerry kind of talked about, I think, last season on the, I think like almost like the informed consumer episode we did, like learning a little bit more. Was that what it was?
I don't remember the episode name, but I know that we basically said like it's important to ask questions. Like,
Yeah. And it's just to
be
understand,
aware
like,
of
if you
what's
go
happening.
into this knowing like the build phase should be more about learning, the build
Mhm.
phase should be more about understanding and building up these skills. Then when you go into a program and you go and you're seeing some of these things, you're like, this doesn't really feel like I'm building, right? It feels like I'm kind of being thrown into the fire on day one,
Mhm.
right? And that's not a good thing, right? Obviously, we want to get results, but we also want to be smart about those results and make sure they're sustainable. And that's where, segue right into sustain. That's where we start to build on those skills. Once we have those skills, we build into the next phase, and then influence just allows us to really like, take advantage of all of that and again, become influential to those around us.
I
So,
want to add one more thing, and it goes back to kind of the longevity piece. I know we touched on it briefly, but this is a conversation that I've been having specifically with one of my clients when it comes to achieving goals. She's been killing it, doing literally everything. I would honestly put her into the influence part, even though she's very new to this whole lifestyle.
well, again, it's like, to me, it's like a track, right? It just means where are they on path to head it,
Yeah,
right? Like if that's what
yeah,
they can get there, then they can get there.
yeah. Because she's training with me 3 days a week. She's doing boxing another day, and then her own cardio on another day. So she's going nuts. She's sending me every single meal that she's doing. She's tracking her macros. She's literally like the ideal client on paper and in person. The only thing is the mindset. So when it comes to longevity, she's like, I just want results. And it's like, this is week 6. Like, we just finished month 1. We're still building a foundation. You're already seeing results that you feel, and that like your clothes are fitting differently, that type of thing. And she's like, I know, I want to get to where I'm going. I'm like, we're going to get there, I promise. So with longevity, no matter whether you're in build, whether you're in sustain or influence, each one has that longevity path. It's going to be something that you have to continue to do consistently in order for you to have longevity in training, but also reaching your goals does take time. Like Brandon mentioned earlier, like 70 pounds in 6 months is ludicrous. It's insane. Like, it's awesome because he did it. Not bad. He did it, but it's something where everyone expects to get that right away.
Yeah.
They expect to go nuts, do everything that they need to do, and if they don't see the results just going straight up, they're like, well, what am I doing wrong? Is this for me? And I think that having a clear path, whether you're in build, sustain, or influence, it's nice to have these to define where you're at. But remembering that even if you're in build, sustain, or influence, it's still going to take time and consistency. That's like the biggest thing I could say.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to end it.
Yeah.
I think I really don't think there's much else to add on to that. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the BGPerform podcast, the first one back. New camera angle, new mic.
Oh, wait, no, get that close?
New mic.
Yeah, but talk.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh,
Is that better?
that right there is a dynamic mic.
Really?
Can
Why?
you just say like, relax, close your eyes? Like, say something.
Relax, close your eyes.
Oh,
We're
man.
about to- oh God.
Oh, God. Peter. No,
Hey,
that's good.
Peter.
Hey, there you go. That's a mic for you. That's good. I love it.
I appreciate you guys for sticking around. Welcome back to season 1 of the BGPerform podcast. Again, we are introducing a couple new aspects with the season. I appreciate you guys. If you have any questions, reach out. If you have any episode requests, reach out. We're going to be doing these in a little bit more of like a batch type scenario. So probably won't add it, but I can do it on the next one.
Not bad.
Just being honest. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys next time